Thank you. Riverside, what's poppin'? I'm from New York, so like if you hear me like going like New York slang in between my talks, just let me know. I just talked to one of my friends. He has a radio show and he's from LA, like 90.7. He has this thing or 90.1. He has an underground. He told me like usually in the East Coast we use one to say peace, but he says go on. So I don't know if that's a Cali thing, like go on, but hey, I love it. I love it. I love it. So welcome to creative entrepreneurship. Welcome to your passion. Yeah, let's just get into the PowerPoint. Let's just have fun. I'm not trying to be like a whole lecture today. I don't want to do that, right? We go to school all the time. Like I want to make this fun. I want to make this engageful. I want to just like have fun, And please feel free to ask questions as we walk through the presentation. Let me know as I welcome you to your passion, right? So a couple goals here for us today, right? I want to be able to introduce to y'all what creative entrepreneurship is through my story, right? I love being an entrepreneur day in and day out. It's so fun. I get that fun. There's so many struggles, but there's also like so much strength. So I want to introduce creative entrepreneurship through my story. Understand the process of becoming a creative entrepreneur. Professor said to me, it was like, first question, what do you do? And I said, I don't know. To this day, I don't know, but I'm doing it, right? Right. So I titled it Creative Entrepreneurship because you'll see, right? Analyzing kind of the strengths and weaknesses of a creative entrepreneur. Like, what are some things that I'm truly strong at, and what are the things that honestly, like, I'd be sitting in my room, hitting my head on the wall, like, I need to get this stuff together, right? So my weaknesses, right? And then making a fair conclusion, like, is this what I'm 23 here, right? Like some of y'all probably like 18, 26, like you're in the range. Like, is this where our generation is going into this idea of becoming creative entrepreneurs? We look to answer these three goals in this presentation, right? So the first part is this idea of jumping around, experiment, figure it out. Like, how are you supposed to like know what you want to do or truly passionate if you're not jumping and doing stuff? Like, come on, what are you gonna do? Just wait at home? Like, you gotta go out there and experiment and just figure it out. So I'm gonna take you back, right, to a time where I thought everything was cool and swag for me. So here's me, 2017 on the left side, right? I don't know why I was wearing a suit and tie. No radio host should ever wear a suit and tie. I'm usually in sweats and slides, right? So this is just we just came off of an interview. This guy's name Mr. Novella. We did an interview. He was working under UMG Records, and UMG Warner Bros. And Sony. They would send us artists that they were looking into or artists that they were on the label, and we would have to promote on campus. So I was telling Mr. Novella, I was like, we had a good relationship. I'm like, just pull up, let's have an interview. So I brought my co-host, my roommate, and then me. We just had an interview. So 2017, I looked to be a radio host. I was all into the radio, right? It's very funny because I'm a strong person that listened to the old Joe Budden podcast, not with Rory and Mal. I don't know about this new Joe Budden podcast, but this is the podcast that I was listening. This is like during that time. And I started getting into blogging, right? And I started to write blogs on artists and small independent artists, from just painters and musicians and all other words. I started blogging for this website called Voices Music. And I was like, yo, like I like blogging. So I had the radio hosting and I had the blogging right at the same time. So I'm like, oh, I'm in the music industry. Like, what we doing here? Like, what's the vibes? So I'm in there, I'm writing blogs, I'm in there. This is all in 2017. I was like, there has to be more to this game. Okay, cool. I decided to go into modeling, right? So on the left side, you see me here with a modeling company called Since 1982. So I was kind of like their brand ambassador. They were paying me like $30 just to wear their brand, right? Just to wear their brand. I was like, okay, $30, I'll take that. Like, all we gotta do is show up, wear the brand, and like be a brand ambassador. $30 per shoot. That's not a problem. They was like, oh, we can also make money as well too. We'll give you 30% off profit. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I don't mind doing this for a year. Like, it was pretty safe. So that's me on the left. I was like, okay, let's get into modeling. So think about this: radio host, then it's also blogger, now it's modeling. I'm like, there has to be more. I want more. Like, I'm just all over the place. Still don't know what I'm trying to do, specifically definition, right? I said, okay, let's curate an event. So we curated an event. This is upstate, right? I was going to school in Syracuse University, right? And I was like, let's do an event. Let's team up with another upstate city, Utica, and let's team up with Syracuse. I'll get some of the hottest artists from Syracuse. My homegirl DJ Tiff Donalds from this upstate got the hottest artist in Utica at that time, and we just battled at a space, and we just brought out a community. And you know what was so dope about this? We even paid the artists, right? We gave everybody $50. We walked out there. I was like, I paid the artist and I had enough money to at least get groceries for the full month. Hey, that's a come up, right? That's a come up right there. So event curations, I did event curation with independent artists. So think about how much that's four different things that I did within 2 years. All right, let's keep it going. Okay, now 2019, I'm like, oh, like I'm the guy, right? And I'm like, all right, drop a book, right? Let me try my limitations. Let's push it to another boundary. I was like, okay, let's be an author. So I dropped my first, music business book. I have a strong passion into music business and just business in general, right? I was like, let's drop my book, Shifting Your Music into Career, Volume 1, right? We dropped that book in June, right? Yo, the world goes crazy, right? I'm like, I'm at this point, I'm like 2021 at this point, right? And I'm just like, I didn't do much. I just dropped the book. They was like, you don't know what it takes to be an author? I'm like, it's very simple. Like, I'm just trying to create passive income. Like, it's very simple, but hey, that's whatever. So think about all these things. So now I'm like, let me type myself into management. So I decided to manage an artist that I've been working with so significantly. His name is Nick Moody. So dope. You can check him out on Instagram, everywhere. And I was like, let me just figure out how to do a tour. So we did a tour from Hartford, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., in New York. New York was crazy. Like we came up about 1G that weekend, right? Off of merch, off of ticket sales. It was crazy. And then we went to Boston, where we brought people from Boston, people from upstate New York, people from downstate New York, people from London. That was the first time I've ever done a show in a different city in Boston. I brought people from four different locations, and I brought some people from international just to perform. Right, I brought Shaka. Shout outs to Lunar Legacy family; they came through, and the impact was just different. I mean, I was at the bar I'm not a Red Sox fan person, but like I'm a Yankees, I'm pinstripe, right? And the guy was just it's like Fenway Park, and the guy was like, "There's just too many different type of lingos," and I'm like, "Yeah, bro, like this is what we do, like this is what we doing." So again, that management spec. So I want more. I started becoming a judge for competitions for like so whenever people started to have creative ideas or trying to launch business, I was sitting on as a judge panel. I'm like, y'all want me to sit as a judge panel to judge what ideas need funding? That's dope. I don't got no problem with that. And it just helped with my brand exposure. This was all in 2020, right? And then after that, I started to take on public speaking, right? So on the right side here, you see us, I started this event. I was talking to this entrepreneurship club about a concept that, I was really heavy about this, what we're talking about today about creative entrepreneurship. And we just knocked it down. Like shout out to Zane and just talking about this passion of being creatives, right? And we brought out the team, we brought everybody out there, and I found a love for public speaking. All right, 20, remember, follow this 2017, 18, 19, 20, we need to get to 2021. I'm like, okay, 2021, we here. We go here on the left side. I was like, let me try being a creative director. All these things matter, right? All things add up. I was like, let me be a creative director. I was like, for this guy named Bert G, 35 years old, and he's like, I can still do music. It's so inspiring to me to see that no one has age as a limit, right? So I was like, I'll help you. I'll help you, create a video for it coming soon. So this guy on the left is One Take Carter, who's on that Netflix show with what was it, Cardi B? I think D Smoke, right? D Smoke won it, so he was on there, but clearly he didn't make it far. And then on the right, I decided to say, okay, let's team up. Let me become an artist consultant for this, again, UK company. I started reaching out to international and I started to work with bands. Like I said, let me dive into like metal rock music. Let me dive into something else, right? Because I'm so focused on hip hop, EDM, I'm big like K Tronado fan, house music. But let me try something different. Let me try a little palette of something different. So I was like, let me manage an Australian band called Among the Ruin. Let me consult for them. So I've been consulting with them since 2021. Now, think about this timeline. 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. Five different roles, 10 different roles in between. What am I still trying to do here? Well, here's 2022. And guess what? I'm telling you right now, this is what a creative entrepreneur is. bringing people of all different types of realms into a space to celebrate one creative purpose, right? That is what creative entrepreneurship is. This day was such a phenomenal. January 19th of 2022 was a phenomenal day because that was the first day that I decided to take the initiative and make Guided by Obas an S corp, right? If I'm gonna, I was trying to go LLC, but I was like, nah, we need S corp. Like we need to give people like options to stock in, right? So that corporation helped us to kind of solidify again. So I was like, let's do it. And this is what 2022 looks like. I made it an effort to become a creative entrepreneur, a type of entrepreneurship that is generational. This is a type of entrepreneurship that constantly inspires people to constantly create art first and then monetize, right? Focusing on art and creation first, then rather than just the monetization, right? So if some of you are very familiar on the other types of entrepreneurship, you have the traditional entrepreneurship and you have social entrepreneurship. Traditional entrepreneurship works as this, right? You have a problem, you come up with the solution, and you use products and services to get to the solution, right? That's traditional. It's very like linear, right? Problem, solution, boom. And sometimes you're either working on product development. So you're like improving a product that's existing or improving a service that's out there, or either A or B, you're just creating something that's new, right? I think it's called like disruptive versus like sustainable technologies. That's what it's called. Then you have the social entrepreneurs, right? The social entrepreneurs are very focused on, kind of like those nonprofit routes, right? Those are the ones that are really focusing on benefiting the society. Well, creative entrepreneurship is really focused on art and creation first, right? Then the monetization. We are focusing on impacting. So today, I thank you so much for having me because I'm more focused today on just the impact. I don't care about the money. I don't really care about that. I care more about making sure that I inspire you today through this talk. That is where I'm at because creative entrepreneurship is all about investing in the people, right? I wouldn't have been the way I've been building this for about 4 to 5 years. And now I'm here today, which I'm so thankful for, right? Professor said this the best is like I had to master how to write a proper email. I had to master how to create a whole EPK, like all that stuff. It took me 5 years to do that. And now I'm here because I started to invest in my people and their feedback, right? But the thing is that we have issues with in this type of, creative entrepreneurship. There seems to be this idea of lack of inspiration for innovation, right? That's where I see in this world that we live in, there's a lack of inspiration for innovation, right? People are not inspired to create, right? And that's why creative entrepreneurship is the solution for that, right? It is the solution. I'm not looking to make big bucks. I am not trying to be with the Drakes. I am not trying to be with the Travis Scott. I'm not trying to be with Lil Uzi. I'm not trying to be with that. I'm just trying to create a sustainable income for myself. So if I'm making 50, $60,000 off my art, hey, and I get to like come out to LA, go to Malibu, you know what I mean? Like if I get to go to Santa Monica Piers, like if I get to do all those things through my art while also inspiring people, hey, that's a win-win situation there. That's what creative entrepreneurship is, right? Any questions? Any questions so far? Any questions? No? Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your brand?
You said, what is my brain?
What is your brand?
Yeah,
Brand.
my brain is crazy. Oh, my brand is Guided by Obas, right? Guided by Obas LLC. Guided by Obas LLC. I thought you meant like, what's my brain process? I'd be like crazy. Like I'm just all over the place. Like I was like, yeah, I'm all over the place. Even early today, before I was prepping, like I was jumping off my room and doing backflips. Like I am pumped, right? But yeah, Guided by Obas, guidedbyobas.net, where you could find more about it. All good?
We have another question.
Go ahead.
Yo, what is your writing process when you're making music?
So I don't make music. I basically consult with artists in terms of music, right? So basically, I don't have songwriting capabilities, right? I'm more focused on the business side of it, right? So if we had to put, music industry to a name and what I do mostly, I do more artist repertoire, so more A&R, right? I'm looking for artists, I'm developing them into their sound that they are. The artist that I work with, Nick Moody, I've been working with him for 5 years, right? And I took him to London to do a show, right? Like that's something that is strictly DIY, right? And we're starting that, those are the things that I do in terms of the music, the A&R consulting, marketing rollout, figuring out playlisting, figuring out various different blogs, figuring out producer songwriting collaboration, figuring out different type of royalties. So like the song trust, of the brands. and all that good stuff from sync royalties to mechanical. I'm not fault to get into math specific and things, but that's where I'm kind of really at. So great question though. Great question.
Albert?
I have a question. Do you play instruments?
No, I don't. I used to sing. So back in the days when I was young, I used to sing in the choir. That as much as I get into the music, I am more of on the business side of things. Yeah.
Okay, another question?
How do you reach out to people via email or phone calls? How do you do that? How do you become successful at that? How do you become good at that? Reaching out to people and setting things up.
Yeah, I mean, your network is your net worth, right? And I'll tell people this, like, I try my best to create the online presence of who I am and as best as that I can. So, emails, I always have this approach. Like, I'm more of a word of mouth person. Like, people will hear of me through other people, right? But for me personally, what I try to do is I try my best to, I do my best. Sorry about the AC in the background. Because I just like it's cold in here. But I do my best to make sure that my brand is right, my image is right, right? So when talking to people, then I try to lead them into social media a lot. But it's more about having those one-on-one meetings from Zoom to also, in person to try to gravitate to people. I hope that makes sense to you.
Go ahead, Albert.
Do you consider yourself self-employed?
You said what happened?
Do you consider yourself self-employed?
Do you?
Oh, yes, I do. I do consider myself self-employed. Right now, we'll get into that a little bit. Right now, I'm doing a little give back to my community. I'm serving as a teacher for about 6 months, but yeah, I'm more self-employed. Yeah,
I want to hear more about that later.
yeah. We're about to get into it. So
Okay. I think we're good with questions, yeah? Okay, go for it.
awesome. So boom, right? So creative entrepreneurship works in this. You remember I talked about, right? You have the traditional entrepreneurship. It goes from problem to solution, very linear, right? So this idea of creative entrepreneurship, it goes from this idea of starting from break, right? So it's like we'll talk about specifically what these are, but you go from breaking to you go through this idea of breaking through and breaking away to this idea of create and this idea of inspire, and you keep doing this cycle over and over again, right? You keep on doing this cycle over and over again. We're going to go into specifics about these things and why it's so important for a creative entrepreneur to understand this creative cycle. I really took this kind of template. Originally I was going to do all like the designs and diagrams, that all the PowerPoints and thing have. But I used to study this guy on the New York Times. His name was Notepad Guy, and he used to do a lot of sketch designs like this on loose leaves and paper. And I was just like, oh, I loved it on like pieces of napkins actually. And I was like, let me try something like this. This is very simple. I'm gonna throw it up. I mean, if my handwriting is bad, let me know. But this is just amazing for me. So yeah, the creative cycle. So we start off with this idea, right, of breaking, right? Pause for a second. Oh, it actually worked. People actually did pause a little bit. All right. Is this idea of taking a pause for a second, taking a moment in your life to understand something, right? It can be a quote. It can be like an experience with your friend. It can be anything. Take a second and unpack that. So let's dive into this. So this weekend, I don't know, does anybody know this artist named Andy Warhol? I think he's like a painter and stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he just had this new exhibit in Brooklyn. So I went with my photographer. His name is Victor Luis Otero, and I don't know much about him. I'm more of a Banksy guy, in terms of art and Basquiat. But I was like, okay, let's go. Let's check this out. So he said something in text message. He goes, "New memories to make in old spaces," and I'm just like, the conversation was just about like taking your ex girl, like going to the space where you used to go on dates with. Like, how do you get these new memories to make in old spaces? I don't know, but it just hit me for a second. That quote just hit me for a second. I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. Something is telling, like, I don't know if anybody sees Manifest, but it was like one of those things, like callings, right? And I was like, there's something different here. So here's an image of me, right? So like I told you before, like I am back at my middle school teaching for 6 months, only on a 6 month contract. Really, I'm like mostly self-employed, but I'm teaching at my middle school. Why? The new memories in old spaces, right? When I was in middle school, right, there were things that I did that I didn't realize I did, and I'm now seeing that 10 years later. I graduated from this middle school 10 years ago, St. Charles Borromeo. And the things that my teachers were telling me, like, you never used to listen to people, or you just was like this defiant person. You always did your own thing, your own zone. And it's like, I am in this old space, St. Charles Borromeo, but I'm making new memories, right? And it's just like, as an entrepreneur, as you know, as someone that's self-employed, it's like these questions of why you here and what's the end goal, it starts to hit you a little different, right? These new memories in old spaces, like that kind of hits you. So I'm like in this teaching thing, I'm like, hold on, press pause. Like I'm back at the school. I pressed a pause on my guided by Obas to come and teach for a little bit. I'm still doing guided by Obas, like I'm here today, but there's something deeper. So when we think about these break points, it's like it's an enlightened pause in our life, right? Because it's calling us to really sit down and take a zoom out, zoom in approach. Like zoom out from the space that you were before to reflect on the things that you reach so you can go back inside a better person. I hope that makes sense. So it's like the idea of taking yourself out of a situation to see yourself reflecting, right? That break was in conversation, like I said with Victor, that conversation or experience or quote, right? You start to think about that. You start to think about the question of why now? Like, why now these things are happening for me? Like, why now am I going back to my school to understand what I was 10 years ago? Why now? Like, and especially if I'm self-employed, I'm this entrepreneur, like this creative entrepreneur. Why now that I have to go there? There's something meaningful there. There's a purpose, and I need to fulfill them because I know how later this is going to turn out to me. Here's the problem with people, and this is no shade on anybody, but people don't act on these things, right? When you have moments or people telling you things that you should not be doing, you don't really act on them, right? You listen to them, but you don't act on that, right? So when he told me that, he was like, yo, you need to make new memories in those spaces. I was like, hmm, I need to act on this. I need to act on this. I need to generally start creating new memories as not only as a teacher, but also as an entrepreneur. So now with that break, now we transition to this idea of breaking away, right? And breaking through, right? This breakaway, breakthrough. It's like redefining the space around you, right? So now I'm out. So I'm in this weird space now where it's like, okay, teacher Obas, entrepreneur Anthony Obas, he's there, but now I'm on this breakaway, breakthrough. And you're gonna realize why I needed to break away to break through, right? Redefine the space that's around you, right? So when I usually break away from things, right? The space that around you, everybody knows I do this all the time. I travel a lot, right? I get out of the space that I'm in. So for me, I love to travel a lot. So in 2019, before I even wrote the book, I was like, I need to get a better space here for me to really, really write this book. So what I do, I did a study abroad at London. I did about 6 months out there, right? And I teamed up with some creatives. So on the right, you see me teaming up with creatives. That's my DJ. That's right here with the blue. You don't look fly, but I still love him to death. That's my DJ. Couple photographers, a writer on here. So I teamed up with London creatives just to say, like, yo, what is the creative space like that? And let me think about the creative space that I'm normally into New York, right? Like, and then I went to and I needed to finish the book on the left. I needed to finish, this is me reflecting on the beach. So this is me in Casablanca. I was like, yo, like, if I'm in Morocco here, right? I just again, I just published, I just finished the book, I finished doing it just. I need to take a second to press pause and really think about like, yo, I just broke away from this space. There are things around that space that shouldn't have been there. What are those spaces? What are those things that are around those spaces? This is where we break through. We gotta break through back into the space that we were, but we have to conquer those things that we just didn't like in that space, right? That we didn't like. So I'm like, all right, bro, you need to do some reflection. Like real talk, like this is really on some reflection. So you're breaking through. And here you think of this idea of conformity, right? So I was thinking about, oh, I gotta get a 9 to 5. Like I gotta be like health benefits, all this other stuff. So I'm like, ugh, gotta conform. That was the thing that was in the space that I was in 2019. These are also the things that are currently happening to me as of today. Like I have to get a traditional 9 to 5. I have to get a job to be sustainable. Income. Like my friends is making $100,000 at Microsoft. True stuff. My friends are working at Microsoft, right? But they still don't want to give me a product key for like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. What friends are they? What friends are they, right? And they're making $100,000, and I'm like, I'm barely making like $1,000 off of my creative entrepreneurship. I'm barely making 1,000, right? And that's something I want to keep doing that on a consistent basis, right? Back in 2019, like back when I was in college, I faced a school suspension, right? Like I was close to leaving out. I'm like, yo, I was here for school on a full tuition kind of, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit here and blow it up because I'm about to get suspended because I spent one night just over intoxicated. Like, come on, dog. Like, what are we doing here, right? Then we have another aspect of health. I'm gonna tell you something. Like, people don't really want to say this, but prioritizing mental health is real, right? Prioritizing mental health is real. I didn't do that. I was trying to be outside with it. Like, I was trying to be talking to everybody, and that didn't work because the thing I didn't do right was prioritize me. And that's problematic here, right? Then it's like about this idea of environment, right? My environment was just all chaotic. Like, I just didn't know what to do. I had this person around me, this person. I'm like, why are these two people around me? Like, please move, shoot, like some type of fly, move, right? Like, my environment was all types of messed up, right? Then I also, this one was the bigger key. I'm jumping around here, comparison to peers. Same thing I told you before. I was comparing people's income, but also I was comparing people's trajectories and careers, right? Like, days like, oh, I got an internship at at this big label. And I'm just like, well, I got an unpaid internship at So Far Sounds, NBC. I'm struggling here. But hey, yeah, do yeah, right? My family's expectations, right? My family comes from Haiti. Like, I'm full-blooded Haitian, right? My family has expectations that I'm gonna get security as a job, and I'm telling them like, no, like I need insecurity in my life again, so I can start following my true dreams, and which is this creative entrepreneurship, which is what I love. And the last one is adapting to new. This is something that I'm still working on to this day. Again, some of these things are applicable today, and some of them are not so applicable. Adapting to new. I'll be honest with you, like I don't want to. If something is working, I don't like to adapt to new, which is a problem in business, especially with the current state that we're in now. Like, you have to adapt to the new, or you're just gonna get left behind, right? I'm very old fashioned. Like, oh, this if this is working, keep doing it. But it's like, when do you have time for your business or you as a person to adapt to new, to accept new people in your life, to really change your trajectory? So I'm like, with all these things, right? All these things surrounding me, I have to break through. I have to get through them. And there's only one way you do that. And you gotta create something. You gotta do something in that new space. You gotta make your space. Like, you gotta, like, you ever see that film when people just walk through a door and be like, this is my house? Like, like football teams, like they be like, this is my house. That's what you gotta create. You gotta create something to like, yo, this is my house. I'm here, right? And this is what I did. I did that. I came back from London and I was like, yo, I gotta create something. Boom. Created the book, right? From there on the left side. So we're gonna work left to right from top to bottom, right? On the left side, I created a book, right? Shifting Your Music into Career, Volume 1. That created me some passive income. I'm like, all right, cool. It's making me some type of money. Then we go here with my crazy self, just staring like like, again, I was going through a bad hair stage, like bad hair stage. I don't know what I was doing, but it was bad. I didn't even get a shape up. But here on the right side, I'm in London, right? I've been working with this company with Lunar Legacy, and I've created like an international transatlantic relationship, shipping artists from London into New York, and I've been shipping artists from New York to London. They have a ton of open mics there. They have a ton of, like, creative events, and we just love to create a community, right? So again, I created a product, created community. I mean, I started creating collaboration. So on the right here, you see me. Somebody drew an illustration of me, just like my head is all over the place, like it's a headspace, and we created into poetry. And what I did was I created it into small, like, 1x1s or like 4x4s. I don't know the actual dimensions, but every time I do an event, I basically give people these cards for $1. If they want to give me $1, sure. If they don't want to give me $1, that's okay. I take free, but donations are accepted. I give them these cards on poetry that summarizes what type of night we're gonna have, right? What type of event that we have. I give that to them because I just believe in, having people remember the night, right? Having people remember the night, remembering that night. If you can attach people to a tangible product, to you're really successful, right? here I was like, let me create merch, right? So my man Marwan, I decided to create some merch design for him. I was like, yo, let's do it. Let's create some merch, right? Let's do that. I created colleagues and I created peers. So here on the right of me, that's my homegirl Athena, and she's 2 years, 3 years younger than me, right? And she was so scared to host an event, and I was like, let me show you how to host because I've been hosting events like forever. And she killed it. She did better than me because I got booed off the stage. So she definitely did better than me, right? So creating those colleagues, the colleague community, product services, creating the space, right? When you break away, when you break through, you need to be able to recreate that space that you're in. So I created a new space, right? I did events that created the vibe that I was in, the energy that I was on, if that makes sense, right? I created that around it because the things that were around me didn't allow me to, one, inspire people, but two, it didn't allow me to make money, right? The people that you have around you really does influence your business model. I really truly believe that. The key partners that you have, like, I don't know if everybody understand like the nine business model brick that they usually sell. So you have key partnership, key collaborations, value proposition. But your key partners in those nine models is so crucial. And that's what I look to redefine. Right. And then we also created something like, oh, is the video not popping? Oh, yes, there we go. Look, we also created this. Like, this was sick. We brought, look at this. Look at this. What? I'm hoping this plays. Hoping, let me see if the audio plays. This is the DJ I was talking about, Milan. Look at these angles. What? This is crazy. Yeah. So I just have to pause there just because, like, just because I don't want you. If you want to see the full thing, is on YouTube, as well too, Marwan. But we created a project where we was like, "Yo, bro, you got an EP called Paradise Parkway. How are we gonna start this rollout?" I said, "We're bringing in a violinist." He's like, "What?" He's like, "What the fuck?" And we was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Yeah, bro, let's do it. Let's bring a violinist. Let's do this." And this is how we started the rollout. So that merch you seen that I did in the previous slide, I was like, we started the rollout like this. We're gonna bring a violinist. I was like, yeah, lucky I didn't bring like a band because I was like, yo, we're gonna sit in the park and just drum out. Like, and that's how crazy I am. But like redefining the space that you're in, right? So that's what the thing about this creating part, right? So we're creating those spaces for us to do the number one thing that ends the creative cycle, which is the idea of inspiring impact, right? Let the people around you, right? Now that you reemerge yourself back in the space, you got the product, you got the services that's inspiring people to monetize. Let the people inspire the impact. Let them add value towards you. So these days, people be like, "Yo, you don't even run ads on Facebook." I know how to run ads on Facebook. I know how to run ads on social media. Like, that's something, like, I can run YouTube ads and call it a day, right? I can do this presentation, run YouTube ads, and get my views up. Here's the thing that people can't do right. And this, you can read this book called Contagious, right? They don't have word of mouth marketing. That is something I perfect my craft in, which is I don't need to be in the room to know that my brand is present. And that's something that a lot of people don't have as creatives, right? So it's like, It's like this. Look at this. Like, oh my God, another project. This is so this guy named Jam Young comes up to me. He comes to my house. If you didn't know, I'm a great cooker. I cook steak, I cook fish. I'm crazy with the cooking. Right? And he's 30 years old and he's just like, I don't know how I'm gonna be a musician and all that other stuff. So then I'm just like, man, stop talking. And then I called my other friend. I'm like, yo, bro, let's put some beats on. So we start playing beats. And I'm just like, we're in my room, man, like we're in the living room, whatever, playing beats, whatever. And I'm just like, bro, pick a beat, rap to it now, or let's go. I don't care, like freestyle. And he was like, what are we doing here? And I'm just like, yo, this is songwriting exercising. Like, you need to be listening to so many different beats to get yourself to start writing to it. So I was like, yeah, like that's what you're supposed to do as like a rapper or as a singer songwriter. You're supposed to find inspiration from the things around you and then gravitate that and flip it. So he did. So he decided, he's like, yo, I'm gonna make a song called Obas Rants. I have this thing called Obas Rants on social media where I just go off on like the world and be true to myself. Like, my Twitter fingers is definitely gonna get me into some trouble, but I just don't care because that's me. I'm authentic to my brand, right? So he goes ahead and he's like, yo, I'm gonna create a song. So he drops this song, and I'm like, bro, you didn't even tell me you dropped this song, right? He didn't even tell me that he dropped this song, but like it just hits different for me, Especially like I gotta play the second verse because this was crazy to me. Just listen to what he says. It's all about me, but this
Ain't no love lost here. Ain't no love lost here. It's a safe space. Ain't no love lost here. Ain't no love lost here. It's a safe space. Yeah, music is my safe place. Yeah, music is our safe place. Ain't no love lost here, so let me share some tears, some fears. Yeah. I ain't wanna write a hook, just wanted you hooked. I ain't wanna write a hook, just wanted you to see. Look, right from my experience, for your experience, and every experience gives me more experience. So I experiment to a detriment, maybe. As long as the world knows Jam is not crazy. Now move your hands side to side like I was a Jay-Z, a little Pete. Rest in peace, every little heartbeat going to sleep. Ain't no love lost here. Crying's a part of growing up in this world right here, where everyone's entitled, everyone's got opinions. Whether you went to Greendale, Harvard, or Old Dominion, or nowhere. Can we joke about it? Just kidding. Well, take that negativity. Good riddance. Bound to win the blue ribbon eventually. So thank God for y'all, Joe Hall, for believing in me. Indubitably. Yo, Jam, Jahar, I've been telling you, this is the mission. This is the plan. Like, I have too much success on my plate. Like, y'all gotta eat. Y'all gotta make this shit happen for us. Like, we're doing this. Like, this is fun. And we gotta keep going. Let's keep going.
So for me, it's like whether for me, I told him like I kind of like the song, I kind of don't like the song, but I love him to death for making the song. That's the thing that kills me all the time, right? Because it's like you were inspired by my mission, right? Again, like that's my guy. This is real. This is what we do. Like I could tell an artist like I don't like your song, even if you put it out and they still put it out. I like that's how we do because we inspire people to do that. And what he was able to do, he was able to share my story through that experience. But he said like I wrote a book about experience to experience. I'm like, yeah, I did that. Like that's supposed to be for me. So I thank him every day. Like shout outs to Jam Young Music again. Shout outs to him like for this song and shout outs to him for being so positive. He's 32 years old, but he's still doing this music stuff. And I can't thank him more than enough. Again, this idea of inspiring, right? Right. So once you feel that inspiration, right? So we've fully gone back into the circle. Remember what I told you earlier, right? Reset the cycle. This is where we're getting into the conclusion. So I thank y'all for being with me. If you didn't like me, go on Yelp and tell me 0 as a star because I just told my Yelp I just did that for this Uber driver. But reset the cycle, right? Reset the cycle of creativity, right? The break through, inspire, create, back into breaking point, right? So again, I went through a lot of different stages of it. I'm back at my breaking point. So I reset the cycle for myself. Now do it again and again because I want to build that foundation. Remember what I told you? I've been doing this DIY stuff for 4 years. I've worked with Sony ATV in London. Like I've worked with a publishing company. I've worked with Soul for Sounds. I've worked with Warner. But I chose this DIY life. Like I'm getting a tattoo on this side that says "Do it yourself." because that's what I just truly believe in, this creative entrepreneurship. I truly believe I just don't get inspiration from working with these big brands, these big industry stuff, right? So I'm resetting the cycle now to do it again and do it again. That being said, I'm doing it again this time around. I'm creating my first audio book. This is idea building back on shifting your music into career volume one, the audio experience. As you see here, it's my DJ. Remember that guy I told you about, DJ 500K, that was like he's not good looking from the beginning, and now he's here back on my book. He's on my cover of my book. This is just the design part, right? So if you see, like, this is me talking to him on the left, the left of the screen, and this is him talking. This is how we are at every event. This has been going on for 3 years, since 2019 to 2022. Without him, I wouldn't be having these experiences to have with y'all today, right? So we talk about this in the audiobook. And let me tell you something. I just finished watching that Ye documentary. Oh, this audiobook is not just me talking. Like, you can hear me talk for days and days and days, but we got so much dope. We're adding poets into it. We're adding little freestyles into it. We're changing the industry of what audiobook is, because I'm not gonna sit here and talk to death. Like, some of y'all probably already fallen asleep on my presentation, which is totally fine. But it's like, I want to create different type of art. You know what I mean? Like, I want to keep y'all engaged and inspired, so that, man, I could just go ahead and do what y'all need to do. You feel me? So yeah, shifting your music into a career, volume one, the audio experience. And we need to reset the cycle. So again, I'm resetting the cycle. Remember, I broke out. I'm breaking through all of those obstacles that I had around me. I'm creating an audio book that's due in July, plus a documentary, plus volume two of the book all throughout this year, which is going to be tight, but we got to do it, right? But you need to reset the cycle, because it's a tiring process, right? So you need to take a second some days and just experience the positives and experience the negatives, right? Before, in my life, I was experiencing a lot of negatives, and I turned that negatives into positive. The thing people don't know how to do these days is have something positive and add more value to be more positive, if that makes sense. So understanding to reset that whole cycle as a creative entrepreneur allows you to add more value onto what is being done, right? Be a pioneer. Be the founder of what you're doing, which is the foundation. Creative entrepreneurs are in different lanes, different everything, but we all have the idea of we're gonna inspire other people to inspire other people to inspire them. And then hopefully we build a community around these people that we all monetize together, because cook together, eat together, right? That's my biggest motto. Welcome those people so that we can be a pioneer. Again, experiment, right? The reason why I took those years, all those like 2017 to 2022, and I did all those things, because I was trying to find new skills to make me into creative entrepreneur. From the podcasting to the radio to the blogging to the author to the manager to the artist consultation to the public speaking to all of those things. I was experimenting those things just so I can reset the cycle to be a creative entrepreneur. To today, hopefully inspire every single one of y'all to just do what you want to fucking do at that point. Get up and go do something. If you want to draw, go do it, right? It takes time, but you got this. So that being said, Riverside Community College, I just want to say thank you for this presentation.
All right, and so he's going to open this up to questions. I have one to start with, Anthony. What is your degree in?
My degree is in marketing and finance, I think. So marketing and finance, yeah.
Okay. Questions?
What's his go-to job when he really needs the funds?
You said, what's my go-to job?
Yeah. What do you do? What's your go-to project or yeah?
Mm-hmm. So if I had to break down my whole business model, right, from a financial standpoint, right? So Guided by Obas LLC makes about $600 to $700 a month, right? That's sustainable right there, right? The teaching job gig is for 6 months, right? So I mean, yeah, that's bringing in income right now, right? And that's cool, because it's like I'm taking on temporary jobs right now to kind of get me to the point where I can make the sustainability for Guided by Obas, if that makes sense, right? So my thought process is this: if I'm already making $600, $700 off my brand, right? And people work full-time jobs as teachers, right? as they get paid like $3,000, $4,000 a month, right? This is teachers on an average of $60,000. I am almost there. Like I am at 20%, right? I'm 20%, but I have to keep building these revenue generators, right? These revenue generators, revenue streams in order for me to create more money for myself, right? So the book, right? The artist consultation, the event curation, panel discussions, right? All of these things, right? People don't realize like audiobook narrations, right? They pay, so I'm starting looking into there, right? Creating all these different revenue generators for yourself would allow you to become sustainable. I hope that answered your question clearly.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Can we maybe get you on camera? Can you stop sharing screen, maybe? That would be
Oh,
great.
yes, sure. No problem. Let me just do stop.
Put your info in chat so they have it there. Good. All right. Good. Now we feel like we're talking to you. Go
There
ahead.
we go. Sorry about that.
I have a question. So I'm majoring in software engineering, so money's not an issue, but what are my chances of being the next NF or next Hobson?
Mhm. So you said the mix and mastering of you're talking about mix and mastering, right?
What are my chances of succeeding on YouTube and being the next NF or Hobson or DAX?
Well, let me know. I have a couple of engineers, like my man Bluff. He does a lot of engineering and stuff like that. So if you need something, like he's there for you. Like I said, I try to create a network of creatives. That way, like anybody can like filter. Like I know people to know people, right? So that's what we're doing here. So I hope does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay, my bad.
He's asking what are his chances of
Succeeding in music,
succeeding in music
being my own creator,
as
like Hobson.
Oh, yeah. Like what are the oh man, sorry, I misinterpreted your question right there. Um, That's tough, man. I mean, everybody says the chances is about 10%, realistically, because everybody's doing it these days, right? The supply is so infant of so many different industry jobs, from A&Rs to, engineers. There's so many different, it's just a supply of everybody. Everybody's trying to do music these days, which is kind of crazy to me, right? Everybody's doing music. This is why it's so strategic for you to do two things. Keep going, but also realize that you have a different value that you can propose to people of business. I hope that makes sense, right? You need to be able to create a selling point for yourself, that from just your work ethic, from creating a great brand image. Like these are the things you need in order to increase your chances from that 10% job to now 20%. But you can't give up, right? I could have gave up in 2017, but I kept going with it, right? You're gonna have your downfalls, but you gotta keep going, understanding and increasing your brand and the people that surround you.
Yeah, because like for a job wise, I'm planning on being a software engineer. But like for like a hobby, I want to be famous in music. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just I say for you, it's just like this first, like, I mean, you're still in, like, the beauty of it, you're still in college, right? Focus on mastering the skills that you need to become a mix and mastering. Start to like really master those things, right? Like, I don't know, do you use Pro Tools or, like Pro Tools? I know a lot of engineers use Pro Tools and stuff like that. Yeah, you see that? They use a lot of Pro Tools, but it's like, start to master your crafts in terms of understanding when to use hi-hats, octave. Like you can have that as a hobby until you're fully able to make the transition, right? I was at a full-time position as a college counselor, right? I slowly shifted into this idea of part-time, guided by Obas, and then part-time, picking up supplemental jobs. So like Uber, I was doing a couple Ubers and Lyfts, like just to be sustainable. Like gig economy helps creative entrepreneurs, right? And that allows me to now make the transition to move on my time. I think time is more valuable these days than money. If you're low on money, you just got to budget at that point, right? You just got to really just budget. So, you can do both, right? You just got to go harder. You just got to go harder. You got to be able to sacrifice, partying. You got to be able to sacrifice, just having dates. It is. You got to be dedicated to both, right? Real stuff.
No, go ahead.
If not, that wasn't necessarily a question, it's just kind of a statement based off of what Albert said. Albert's question was, what's the chances of him becoming the next NF or Hobson? Albert, I just want to say to you, But when you want it more than you breathe, or when you want it more than you can eat a meal in a day, that's when you'll succeed
Yeah.
more than anything else. When it's the only thing you think about, when it's the only thing you dream about. Hobbies are cool, but when you want them to live and die by your dream, that's when it will come true.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Have you ever hit a wall while in your career as an entrepreneur, your self-employment? Have you ever hit a wall, and what do you do to get back up on your feet and keep going?
Yeah. Oh man. This is the big one here. So let me tell you this. So last year in like September, right? I am a good grant writer. Like I've gotten grants for this small organization in Syracuse, $3,500. Like I've gotten it for this other organization in Syracuse. Like I've gotten good grants, right? I don't think there are certain things that really piss me off. I think getting denied grants is the worst thing for me, right? And at that point, it's like, you got to live and learn, right? You got to live and learn, right? So, this organization was, it's called City Corps here in New York City, which was giving funding for creative stuff. And I basically pitched this idea of, again, with the whole pandemic and everything for creatives, like a lot of us really got impacted mentally. So I said to them, okay, with $5,000 of a budget, I can get somebody that does physical therapy for massages. I can get a yoga class and some meditation. Like that's what $5,000. Cool. That's what I said. I pitched that. Guess what these people did to me? Take a guess what they did to me.
Did they laugh at you?
They've denied me. They didn't even laugh at me. I would rather you laugh at me first, but they just straight up denied me. Like, what you denying me for? Like, come on. You seriously gonna deny me for really like, and not to be like, that ego. I'm just like, you're gonna deny me. I'm trying to promote something that is needed for the community and deny me. They gave the $5,000 to somebody to do a showcase. I said to myself, are you serious? You gave the person $5,000 to do an artist showcase. And I was like, oh, this is what we're doing? So I said to myself, I hit a big wall. Like I was just generally like, at that time, I didn't really have a lot of funds and I really banked on the $5,000. And, one of my friends just said to me, and he was like, oh, if you really wanted to do it, you would have just done it. I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you're a business, like, what you could do. And I was just like, but I don't want to do it. Right. And he was like, if you was really passionate, you would have taken out some credit and flipped it and then just done it for the people if you were really there. And I said to him, yo, you're right. Like, I'm not going hard enough. I'm not going hard enough because if I really genuinely wanted to put on this show, and it still hits me differently to this day now, and I still haven't done it. Like I still sit on this, right? This wall, right? It's like if I really wanted to do this for my people, I would have just jumped the trigger and just said, yo, let me get a $5,000, loan with zero interest rate, right? We got to have the zero interest rate. We definitely got to have the zero interest rate. We definitely have to have that. With a zero interest rate, and let's do that. Or even if I didn't get a loan, why didn't I apply for another grant? Real stuff. Why didn't I just apply for another grant? Or why didn't I just do it and ask for off strength, right? Just tell people like, let's just do it off strength. Let's just do it for free for the people, right? Again, so I hit a wall where I was just like, if I'm going to do this, right, I got to do it for the people. And at that time, I really wasn't doing it for the people. I was just doing it so I can get the $5,000 and they say, whoop-de-doo, I got the grant. So, whoop-de-doo, I got the grant, right? So, yeah.
I think over here.
What advice would you have for people that have creative hobbies that they want to turn into something more, but they're like creating things, like I could say like knitting or crochet, so they're tangible objects.
Mm.
A
Yeah.
book can be sold, like made once and then sold over and over again, like it's individual objects.
Yeah. So first, I will always say this: your brand starts with you, right? Showing people that you have value. That's the first thing. First of all, if you do knitting, that is so dope because like I need like a knitting like little skull cap, so definitely gotta talk. But for people like that, first you gotta start, right? You're never gonna like when I was doing blogs, I never got the attention that was, but my approach was different, right? I always tell people, you gotta stay in people's faces. Because if you start to move away from people's faces, then it's a problem, right? That means you're really not passionate about it. For me, I just kept being in people's faces. I used to do, and people, I don't like the idea of spamming people, but like I remember before it was back in the days, I used to tag like 100 people on Facebook. Bam, come see my blog, right? Or right, something like that, right? Or like you have artists would send a group, they'll have like group chats with people and send it like that. You have to be consistent. And first of all, you don't care about anybody's opinions. That's a fact. If you know you're good at knitting, you better knit that scarf and let people wear that and let them be fashionable, right? I think for your business, what you could start doing is if you're knitting like clothes and stuff like that, have people start wearing it and post it on your social media. Let that traction from their page go directly to your page. That way that you can start monetizing off of it. But first, it's not even about monetizing. It's more about the brand awareness and inspiring people. If you're doing this constantly, people are gonna gravitate you. And then off rip, when you make that first sale, it's gonna feel good. It's gonna feel good. So knit that scarf, girl. Knit everything. Like, go ahead, do you?
And kind of banking off of that, then I also like photography and I wanted to get into it, but I feel like that's kind of in between like the tangible objects and the book, because you can take as many photos, but how will you put it out there?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things you can do is listen to me. This is what you could do, right? Basically, my homegirl Ohima did this, right? She basically rented out spaces on campus, right? And she used basically those spaces and she made her photography into prints, right? She sold prints. I mean, now that everybody's going into like the photography world, NFTs, people are doing that now. NFTs is a big come up for digital art as well too. But you can literally sell like, and you could do like NFT pricing on those things for bids, right? As a way of crowdfunding for yourself, right? But then you can do a physical space as well too, where you're creating these prints and having people coming through and purchasing. I like to think of I call it print gallery. Basically, it's like you come around, you showing people all these different prints that you've taken of people. You might even have, the creatives that are there to come talk about it a little bit as like your salespeople. And you get a sell off that. You give them a slice of the bread and you take a slice of the bread, right? It all works in hand, right? There's a business revenue for everything, right? You just got to figure out a way to capture people and sell that story. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, one last thing about,
Yeah.
'cause my main concern, like I started photography Instagram, but I never made it public because I was scared of like a sort of plagiarism in a sense, because I had known about like larger companies like taking things from smaller people, and I knew how to really prevent that, so I never made it public. So do you have an idea of like what you would do to prevent that if possible?
Yep. Watermark your images. Put a watermark on it so that you own that, right? I mean, for me, honestly, like one of the things that people can't say about my book is copyrighted, right? Get your images copyrighted. Protect your intellectual property. People don't do that with their art, which is it's a huge problem. Get that intellectual property protected, right? I mean, I paid $55 for my book to be copyrighted, and I can generally say that information is from me. So watermark, copyright, but protect the intellectual property.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
David,
Oh, yeah,
speak up a little bit.
Yeah, my question is about being like self-employed and like an entrepreneur, creative entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Where have you defined your line of quality versus quantity?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love this question. Like I had to fall back on the chair just to come back with it. But, because I just love it, right? My first 2, 3 years was all about quantity, right? It was about getting into people's faces as much as possible. So I was at events, I did so many things, and I was just all over the place, right? And then, I said to myself, you're doing all this stuff, you're draining yourself, one. Two, it's like you're running around with no purpose, right? You're running around with no purpose, right? Why don't you maximize your effort, right, towards those one or two things and then make it big, right? And make it big. So that's what I did. Like, I mean, I was trying to do events every week, and it was just like this is not working because first of all, one, as much as people want to say I can do a business by myself, that is a lie, right? You need a team, you need staffing, right? You need people around you to help you out, right? So and sometimes you just need that, right? And I started one of the things I started doing is I started trusting people. So I don't even have to be at events these days to make a bread or to make paper, right? Again, this idea of quantity over quality, right? I started to, from one, value my mission statement, right? To understand that if I'm going to put the effort, it better be 200%, not no 100. It better be 200%. And I'm going all out with the promotion, right? And if I did my best, I did my best, but at least I didn't sugar around it, right? Because you're doing too much, you start to lose purpose, and people don't really understand why you're doing it. You get the quality, and again, timing is key. So if you think it was time, it wasn't that time, it wasn't that time. But there's always time to bring it back, or there's always time to drop it. So I hope that answers your question too.
Follow up, yeah.
Yeah, now, do you think those first 2 years of just running around doing kind of like, not whatever, but just kind of running around, do you think they impacted when you finally decided to go into quantity? Or do you feel like you could have started from a place of quantity, from a place of quality over quantity?
I mean, that's tough, man. If I have to go back to that time period, right? I think doing the quantity method made sense because I was in a market where no one else was doing it. Does that make sense? Right? I was in a market that it was just me, and I was just like, oh, I gotta go all out here and every day to make sure that there was no room for basically any imitation, if that makes sense, at that time period, right? Now these days, people are now, you hear every day, I am an A&R. And I'm like, where are you an A&R for who? For where? Like, I go to Clubhouse and everybody's like, I'm an A&R for this. I'm a digital marketer for that. I'm like, who is where? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? Because everybody now is doing something in the music industry, whether it's big, independent, or whatever. So now it's like, I can't match the quantity of or the volume these days, right? I have to measure these days based on margins, right? The degree of separation from the difference from my event and your event. So, again, the timing was right to do a lot of quantity. If I was to do it again this time around, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because there's just too many people doing it.
Anthony, can you talk a little bit about how important having others around you is? Because everything you seem to have done, you did on a team.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of individual pictures. And as a professor of this generation in particular, I see a lot of individualism and shyness and kind of staying in their own corner. So I want to impress upon them to break out and, do teamwork. So can you please talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I I am the guy that has, when I first started, I had trust issues. I was like, you don't understand my vision, you don't get me, you don't understand where I'm trying to go, right? And that's how I was on a general basis. And I wasn't just listening to people. And what I started to do is, as I started to create my brand as by myself, people started to gravitate to my hard work and hustle, right? And that allowed me to say to them, I'm like, yo, what do you have that I don't have, right? Instead of me trying my best to try to acquire that skill and try to be this man of many hats, right? Because I just don't want to A, pay people, or B, just have a team of network around me. It just really, really hurts you at that time, and it wastes time. And as a creative, you can't waste time, right? So since 2017, 2018, 2019, it's not even like a team. Like, they're not all under guided by Obas. That's not what it is. I call them the League of Assassins, right? It's like, if you see the content that we're doing, it's not just me. It's like, I'm throwing this person at you, throwing this producer at you, and we here. So teamwork makes the dream work. And not to be cliche and corny there, but it's also the fact of the process is a lot quicker and faster doing it with a team, right? And rather than doing it by yourself.
That's great advice. Yeah, go ahead.
You talked on the topic of mental health and why that's important. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on maybe your personal, I don't know, you're willing to?
Yeah, of course. And you know what I mean? Like I said, this is personal. This is a personal conversation. When in 2018, I mean, I was dealing with high anxiety. And I ended up going to the hospital, right? Like, so there was an image I wanted to put up today about me hosting an event literally a day before me entering into the hospital with high anxiety. Like Like I'm talking about like my couldn't like, like it was to the point where I had like a stroke, you know what I mean? And I was just doing too much. I was going through problems in school, and I was trying to fit in. Like one of the things I was trying to do, I was trying my best to be like in, a Greek club, right? And it just didn't work, right? Because I was spending time going to parties, doing all this stuff, like all this networking stuff, and it just took a roll on my anxiety, right? And I was just like, yo, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I so anxious here? Like, it almost landed me in the well, excuse me, it did end me in the hospital, right? Where, I was just sitting there like, yo, like, this is crazy. I gotta step back. And it's so crazy. It's like people don't start prioritizing mental health until like they're actually in a hospital because of mental health, right? Um, which is so true. I mean, I'm just saying this based on my experience. I didn't start prioritizing mental health until like it really got to me. And ever since then, I just said to myself, yo, I gotta change myself. Like that's where you remember that process about breaking away part that I was talking about earlier. That was one of the reasons why I had to break away from, school was just like I had to get my mental state right. And being in New York, being like again, being a kid that only just was in New York that never really traveled like that. Um, I mean, I did travel, but I never traveled on like I'm taking the Virgin Atlantic and I'm in Rome the next day type of kid, right? Um, when I was out there, I was just like, yo, I'm limiting myself to New York and the United States when I could just generally travel at will and understand different cultures, which helped my anxiety decrease like tremendously. So yeah, man, prioritize mental health, prioritize you and your being, but also prioritize the people around you. Making sure to check in with the people that friends and family that's always around. Real stuff.
Go ahead.
How is it that you were able to travel so frequently? Did you have a mission in mind when you went somewhere, or was it kind of you were just riding the wave?
So, boom, let me tell you about the strategy I use. Ready? This is what we're gonna do, right? So, when I traveled, I traveled. This is a key trick that no one really tells people about this, but I learned this very quickly. Um, like Delta has mileage programs and American Airline has mileage programs. I don't know if you're very familiar with that. Um, but if you're not, this is a gem. So I would be traveling to like so for example, like someone told me this in college, right? So what I did was I used to travel with colleges, right? And they would have like these like career networking events, whatever, and they would be like, "Oh, we're flying on this airline." And I said to myself, "Well, first of all, the school was paying," and I was just like, "Wait a minute, the ticket is under my name and everything like this." So I was like, "Let me create a little flight membership, a little flight membership." So I took all those mileage points and I kept adding them up. What Delta does now is they do a lot of brand partnerships. So they do brand partnership with Lyft, Turo, Thrifty, all those like car rental, any form of transportation. Anytime you transport with those companies, those mileages adds up to Delta. So I was reducing my cost of flying through mileages that I was using on our day-to-day travel. I hope that makes sense, right? When I travel to these places, right? When I travel to these places, I always tell myself if I'm there for business, it's 3 days. If I'm there for business and pleasure, is there for I'm there for 5 to 7, right? Usually I would stay with people, right? I mean, stay with friends as well too that I knew, or usually, and I always would have a mission, right? Like it would be 3 days of business, so 3 days would be about networking, going to events, linking up with promoters for lunch, whatever, just building those connections, right? Maybe I would also use my digital platform, my Instagram, my Twitter, all those this platform, establish the digital conversation first, develop like a very good relationship, and then we would link when we met in person, right? Um, so again, reducing travel expenses through mileage, stay at somebody's crib to reduce it, reduce stay expenses, and then in terms of food, every time I travel, I reduce my expense. So I usually eat 3 to 4 times a day. I reduce it to two, right? Because I don't get up until like 12 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm on vacation, right? Because I'm just all over. And if there's certain places that they serve in big proportions. Like I remember when I was in LA last year, like I had Roscoe's, and I was like, this meal is freaking crazy. And I just had one meal, and I was stuffed. Um, So, that's just how I travel, and I travel with a purpose, right? I travel with purpose and vacation. Like, you got to take a second to, again, reset that cycle, but you also got to use a second to, like, yo, I'm here. Let's maximize the time because you don't know when you're going to be back. So,
A great answer. Go ahead.
Okay, I have 3 questions.
yeah, bro.
First question, out of 10, how much would you recommend like the book Contagious? Out of 10.
Yeah. Out of 10, if you want me to be real, like, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the book, like, if I wrote the art, like, looking back at it now, I think it's a freaking 5, right? Like, I think the book is a 5, right? When I first wrote it, I'm like, this is a 10. But the experience,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but earlier you spoke about the book Contagious that Nipsey Hussle spoke about. Out of 10, how much would you recommend that book as a
oh,
read?
that book is cold. That book is cold. 10 out of 10, like, contagious. Shout outs to Nipsey, man. Like, Nipsey's one of my favorite, rappers, right? Like, Contagious is a big book, right? I love it. It talks about the psychology and marketing of things. So definitely get that book. I have various different marketing books that I use. So, um, you know, that's Contagious is one. There's a couple of other books. I have a whole shelf of them. So if, you got
And
my
I,
email.
I have it. I just never finished reading it. But after today, I'll probably finish reading it by the end of this next week.
Word.
Second question that I have is when you said you got a degree in marketing, correct?
Yeah, marketing and finance.
What was the most important lesson that you learned throughout achieving that degree?
Here we go. One of the things you can't marketing is life. What that means is, like, marketing, you can't learn marketing in a book. Like, there's strategies in marketing. So they'll teach you about the 4 P's: price, pricing, product. Ooh, I am missing out. A placement. I forgot the 4 P's. They'll teach you about, like, all these other stuff, but, like, they won't. That you'll get the books part of it, but marketing is all about life, and you need to understand how life works in terms of promotion. There we go. Promotion. Yes, promotion. Thank you. Um, so yeah, so like, marketing is life. So all those strategies that you learn from marketing is just like you've learned them, but, like, you have to understand how to apply them into life. And the only way you're able to do that is to go through life and understand the marketing that's around you, right? Because there's marketing everywhere, from the notebook that you write in to, your school promoting a club. Like, everything is marketing. So marketing is life. And it's crazy enough, I learned that from my it's so crazy. I didn't learn that in my class. I actually learned that from my driving instructor. He told me that. Yeah. Shout outs to my driving instructor.
Final question that I have for you, based off of the 2 questions that I asked previously.
Yeah.
What is the best way to stay in people's faces, otherwise known as marketing? What would you say is the best way, as a musician and an artist myself, what is the best way to stay in people's faces?
Oh man, like, oh, this is my thing, right? You have to do a lot of things, but these are the 3 things. You need to have a digital presence, right? If there's anything that COVID has taught us, is that you need to have digital presence. Like, you gotta have digital presence. You can't sit here and think that you're gonna be, all over. You think, like, you could just constantly meet up people. So you need a digital presence. That's one. To stay in people's mind, constantly posting, right? You got Instagram stories, now you got TikTok stories, you got reels. You gotta be in people's faces. For me, I stopped doing that because I'm just all about quality over quantity. But you gotta stay in people's faces. So as a musician, artist, you gotta stay in people's faces, right? And it gotta hit, right? The content gotta hit. So digital aspect. I think another thing is you're constantly having conversation. If you are not the topic of conversation, then that is a very problematic, right? Like, for me, it was like today, I was like, so, I promoted this event for all my people, and it was just like, I told them, just pull up, you know what I mean? Like, pull up, and they pulled up, and it was great seeing those people, right? But you constantly got to do something. You just can't just sit around and do nothing. Like, people think they're Drake and just be like, I can post content. And then who? And then, like, no, you gotta be consistent every day. So, like, getting people's faces digitally, and also making sure that your brand is. Also, another thing that I realized, you need to have a personal touch, right? you need to have a personal touch to you as like promoting and your marketing, right? That's why I created Obas Rants. Obas Rants is a personal touch to Guided by Obas. It's me constantly getting up in the morning saying, why do I see a dead rat in front of my building? Like, this is crazy. Like, this is real shit. Like, this happens. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, they got a dead rat in front of my building. I was like, what happened to the cats? I thought the cats were supposed to kill, you know. But yeah, no, but these are like, that's how I use Obas Rants. I add a personal touch to my brand. So
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Any other questions? Or any questions online? If anybody has a question they want to put in chat. Anthony, there was an event coming up, I think in LA, right?
Facts. And thank you so much. Listen, I'm in LA, May 6th to 9th, right? So we're doing, I'll definitely send Jen the information as well too. But May 8th, I'm hosting like a little creative, creative kind of function. And basically it's like, what we're gonna do is, basically we're gonna have a photographer there as well too. He's going to be taking photos of everybody. So if you need like headshots, if you need, again, free donations is welcome, but free for everybody. I'm just out there in LA just so I can finish my tattoo and like I can get some sun. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm just there, I'm in some sun in my tattoo, right? But so we're gonna have some photos that you can take for headshots and just whatever. So I know someone said they were a photographer. If you want to just come through and just take some photos of people, more than welcome to. You have the space to do it. We're just really on some like creative DIY. We're gonna have like right now we're functioning in whether to get a panel speaker or have a community talk, basically meaning like invite, because we're basically bringing people from Chicago, New York into LA, and we're just having like a seminar, right? And just having a 45-minute conversation about each other's markets, learning about each other, right? What are you navigating? What you're doing, right? So we're gonna have that, and then it's gonna transition into some live performances. So I know my man said that he's looking to do a show and whatever. If you want to come through, more than welcome to come perform. It's totally free. You got my email. Send me the music. Come through, vibe out. We're just vibing. Like I don't know how the turnout is gonna be, but what I told you before is like I'm willing to risk it all. So that's what I'm doing. So more than welcome to pull up. So
Sounds good.
I'll be there.
You got a few people gonna be there.
thank you. Appreciate ya.
You are just fantastic. I feel like you're part of my family now. Look this way.
Y'all part of my family too.
Yeah, I just adore you, Anthony. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. Yo, y'all the rock. Give us a round of applause for y'all. Like give a round of applause for y'all. Shout outs to y'all for being dope. And all the people that's on Zoom, shout outs for y'all for being dope too. Much respect.
Thanks so much, Anthony. I'll catch up with you later, but I know they really appreciate it and got a lot out of this. So
thank you. I appreciate y'all too. And stay blessed, be safe, and we'll talk soon. I'll see y'all in LA.